All right, for more on the Florida 1st Congressional District race between Democrat Gabe Alamont and Republican Jimmy Patronis, we're happy to have Jimmy Patronis joining us now. And Jimmy, after I talk to you, I'll talk to your opponent. But let's start with you, because this is getting such national attention because of the balance of power in the House. We can remind our viewers it's 218 to 213, a razor-thin majority Republicans have there. How much pressure, sir, are you feeling in your race there, even though you seem to have a lead?
So there's only two ways to run in a campaign, and that is either behind or scared. And we are running hard. I'm so excited to get to Washington, D.C. to help fight for President Trump's agenda. My opponent, she's flawed. Her policies, they're failed. There's nowhere the Democratic Party has to turn. I really look forward to Tuesday night seeing their $8+ million all be set on fire for nothing in Northwest Florida.
And Jimmy, you know, we had Randy Fine from the 6th District on the show yesterday, and he was talking about the fact that, listen, voters normally don't vote in elections in March, and he's worried about turnout. Listen here.
What we worry about is Republicans voting. So 25% of Democrats have already voted in this district, but only 14% of Republicans. Our people generally vote later, but we need them to go and vote today.
What are you seeing in terms of voter turnout in your race?
So when you've got Democrats soliciting money from all over the country to try to change this seat from red to blue, they're going to have more encounter with the voter. But the important part to remember is the voter in Northwest Florida is an educated voter. These guys, in my opinion, are literally setting their money on fire and trying to influence Republicans who turned out overwhelmingly for President Trump every time he's been on the ballot.
You mentioned the money. We can show our viewers you're being outspent 5-1, it looks like. You've raised just over $3 million, whereas Alamont has raised some $16 million. Is that going to be a vulnerability for you?
Well, and that's the statewide totals that have been raised in both of these races. But yeah, look, she is going to have access to more resources because the Democrats have nowhere else to send their money. So literally, you know, we are outperforming them at the polls right now with mail-in and early ballots. But that's why it's so important that people realize you're not going to get a ballot in the mail this late in the game. You have to show up on Tuesday. You have to vote. You have to send Jimmy Patronis to Washington, D.C. to help President Trump.
Speaking of President Trump, Jimmy, let me ask you, because what we saw, the real story of the November election was that Trump was able to not only have a strong turnout of his MAGA base, but he reached a multi-ethnic working class coalition that turned out for him that weren't necessarily MAGA-based voters. How are you able to try and reach those voters in your race?
Well, that's exactly what happened in November. The country was fed up with the previous 4 years. Our Americans for the last 4 years were poorer. Things cost more. Their policies of the Democratic Party were failed. This is why they were so excited by a change. This is why they were so excited to cast a vote for President Trump, because the Democratic Party in our country is broken. They don't have a rudder. They have no plan to salvage their failed policies. And by the way, they don't even have a leader right now.
But let me say this, to be contrary, Jimmy, that the Democrat, angle criticism is that in the 10 weeks of President Trump's administration, Democrats are growing increasingly motivated and energized by the backlash to things like the slew of executive orders. Are you worried that Democrat voters are being driven to the polls because of a backlash to President Trump's early administration?
So there's this condition called Trump derangement syndrome, and every single Democrat has this. And unfortunately, they don't have a cure for it. There's no way to change it. For the next 4 years, they just need to get ready for a President Donald J. Trump to be in the White House, and his policies are going to save our country.
Good luck on Tuesday, Jimmy. We look forward to covering the race. Thank you for taking time today.
Thanks for having me. God bless.
All right.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.